I saw the comments. Some of you loved the ride, some of you were furious. A lot of you said the same thing in different words. Where's the rest? What was on the call log? Who won? What did the documents actually say? Fair. So here it is. I'm not leaving you hanging this time. I landed after dark with my stomach still knotted from the airport stop. The canceled flight, the texts, the motion my parents filed to erase me from court like I was a typo. Elliot Lane met me outside baggage claim. Not inside the terminal, outside under the harsh lights where everything looks more real and less forgiving. He didn't hug me. He didn't ask if I was okay. He handed me a slim binder and said, "These are the documents everyone's been fighting over." On the cover was a simple label, supplemental exhibits, and inside were copies of the airline's internal notes with my father's name typed in black and white. The incident slip from airport police, the screenshot of my mother's threat about guardianship, and behind all of that, protected in a clear sleeve like evidence, was the thing I'd been carrying the entire time. The emergency call log from the night my grandfather died, a CAD printout with timestamps, a dispatch narrative, a reference number that could be subpoenaed. It wasn't emotional, it was sterile. It didn't care who cried at the funeral, that's why it mattered. Elliot kept walking beside me toward the parking garage. Your parents are claiming your grandfather wasn't lucid when he updated the will, he said. They're also claiming you pressured him. I didn't answer with a speech. I just opened the sleeve and looked at the line that had been burning a hole in my head since the moment I read it. Caller reports male subject attempting to obtain signature. Patient states, do not let him take papers. I shut the binder. Elliot watched my face change and said quietly, "You didn't tell me that part." "I didn't want it said out loud on a phone," I replied. He nodded once, like he respected the instinct. At the hotel, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared of court, because I knew my parents would show up smiling. Because they always show up smiling when they think the system belongs to them. In the morning, Elliot and I walked into Rio Arriba County Probate Court early enough to smell the coffee before we heard the voices. My mother was already there. Perfect hair, soft cardigan, hands clasped like prayer. A face that said concerned parent to anyone who didn't know the script. My father stood beside her in a suit that cost more than my first car, speaking in low tones to their attorney. And when he saw me walk in with Elliot, his smile didn't drop. It sharpened, like he couldn't decide whether to look offended or amused that I'd survived. We didn't speak. We didn't exchange greetings. We didn't give the hallway a show. We went straight into the courtroom and sat where Elliot told me to sit. Front row, aisle seat, visible to the bench. Not hiding, not cowering. When the judge entered, the room rose. He didn't start with the will. He started with my parents. "I reviewed the supplemental exhibits," the judge said, voice flat, and I reviewed the motion to proceed without Ms. Aunt Holloway based on an alleged detention for threat-related behavior. My father's attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor," the judge held up one hand. "No," he said. "I have questions, and I want answers without theater." The room went so quiet I could hear a pen click behind me. The judge looked directly at my father. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "did you contact airport police and report your daughter as a threat?" My father's smile tried to hold. "Your Honor, I was worried," he said. "She's been unstable. She said things—" The judge's gaze didn't move. "Did you make the call, yes or no?" he asked. My father inhaled like he was about to perform innocence. "I contacted them because—" The judge leaned forward slightly. "The court has the audio," he said, and his tone changed just enough to make everyone understand this wasn't a debate. "And the court has documentation you contacted the airline to cancel her travel minutes before boarding." My mother made a soft sound. Practiced, wounded. The judge didn't look at her. He looked at my father again. "You told this court she was removed from security in handcuffs," he said. "You understand that is a serious allegation." My father's attorney tried to slide in. "Your Honor, any language used was based on information—" The judge cut him off with a glance. "Counsel, sit," he said. "Your client is about to speak under oath." A bailiff stepped forward. The clerk stood. A Bible appeared. My father's expression shifted for the first time. Just a flicker of fear, like he hadn't expected the judge to drag the lie into the light and pin it down. He was sworn in. Then the judge asked again, slower. Ah, did you make the report that initiated the airport stop? He said. My father swallowed. Yes, he admitted. My mother's eyes snapped to him, sharp and furious, because she knew what that admission meant. The lie was now his, in public, in a court of record. The judge nodded once. All right, he said. Now we're going to address motive. He glanced at Elliot. Mr. Lane, he said, you mentioned an emergency call log from the night of the decedent's death. Yes, Your Honor. Elliot said, we have the CAD report and the dispatch narrative, and we've requested the audio. The judge's gaze moved to me for the first time. Not sympathy, not pity, attention. Ms. Holloway, he said, is that log in your possession? Yes, I answered. Approach, hunt, he said. My legs felt steady when I stood because this wasn't emotion. This was proof. I handed the sleeve to the clerk. The clerk carried it to the judge. The judge read silently for a long moment, eyes moving line by line. Then he paused. He reread one sentence. And I watched my mother's face tighten like she could feel the words from across the room. The judge looked up. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway, he said, you are alleging the decedent was confused and coerced when he made changes to his estate plan. My father's chin lifted. Yes, he said quickly. He wasn't himself. The judge held up the page slightly. Then explain why, on the night he died, the dispatch narrative states he was coherent enough to request a specific person by name and refuse contact with you, he said. My mother's hands unclasped. My father's mouth opened, then closed. The judge turned to the clerk. If the audio is available, I want it played, he said. Elliot didn't look surprised. It is, Your Honor, he said. The clerk reached for the system controls, and as the courtroom speakers crackled to life, I felt my throat tighten, because I knew the next voice everyone would hear was my grandfather's. Then the clerk hit play, and his voice filled the courtroom. The speakers crackled, then settled into a thin, official silence. For a second, all you could hear was the HVAC and someone's nervous cough. Then the recording played. Rio Arriba Dispatch, a woman's voice said. What is the location of your emergency? My grandfather's voice came through next, rough but clear, not confused, not drifting. Clear in the way a person gets when fear cuts through everything else. This is Harold Holloway, Nate, he said. My son is here. He's trying to make me sign papers. I told him no, he won't leave. There was a pause, and I felt the courtroom lean toward the sound. Dispatch asked, Are you injured, sir? No, Grandpa said, but he's taking my documents. I need someone here. I need a witness. My mother made a soft noise, like she'd just been personally attacked by the truth. My father didn't move. He just stared straight ahead with that same expensive stillness he used at family dinners when he wanted everyone to think he was the adult in the room. Dispatch continued, calm. Is anyone else with you? Grandpa answered, He brought someone. A man I don't know. They said it's for the will. I don't want to sign anything. I already did what I wanted to do. The judge shifted slightly on the bench, not outrage, focus. Because I already did what I wanted to do is not what a confused man says. The recording went on. Dispatch asked for a description. Grandpa gave it. Then quieter, he added, Please tell them not to take my papers. A beat later, the audio caught another voice in the background. My father's voice, close and controlled, the kind he uses when he wants to sound reasonable while he's applying pressure. Dad, stop making this dramatic, he said. You're not well. You don't even remember what you signed. Grandpa replied immediately, no hesitation. I remember exactly what I signed, he said, and I remember why. That line hit the room like a door slamming. I watched my parents from the corner of my eye. My mother's hands were clenched now, knuckles white. My father's jaw ticked once. And my parents' attorney, the smooth one, stared at the counsel table like he wished he could disappear under it. Eber, the dispatcher asked, Do you feel threatened, sir? Grandpa paused, then said something that made my throat tighten. I feel cornered, he said. They're trying to take my life and turn it into their money. The judge held very still. The audio continued until the dispatcher said units were en route. Then Grandpa's voice again, softer, almost tired. Please, he said, get them out of my house. The clerk stopped the recording. Silence. Not the kind of silence where people wait for someone else to react first. The kind where the room understands the story, just rewrote itself. The judge looked up, eyes fixed on my father. Mr. Holloway, he said, you told this court your father was confused and coerced when he updated his estate plan. My father's attorney started to rise. The judge didn't even look at him this time. Sit down, Bean, he said. And the attorney sat. Then the judge said, we just heard your father, in his own words, state he had already completed his decision, that he remembered what he signed, and that you were attempting to obtain additional signatures against his wishes. My father's smile was gone now. All that was left was the posture, the suit, and the thin belief that money could still smooth the edges. Your Honor, my father said, voice careful. He was upset. He didn't understand what was happening. The judge's gaze narrowed slightly. He understood enough to call emergency services, identify you, describe a stranger with you, refuse to sign, and request witnesses, he said. That is not confusion. That is clarity under pressure. My mother leaned forward, voice trembling. We were trying to protect him, she said. He was being influenced. The judge finally looked at her. By whom? He asked. My mother's mouth opened and closed, because the answer was supposed to be me, but the recording had already shown what the influence looked like, and it wasn't me standing in his house trying to get papers signed. The judge turned back to the bench file and tapped a page with his finger. Counsel, he said to my parents' attorney, your motion relied on a factual claim that Miss Holloway was removed from airport security in handcuffs for threat-related behavior. He looked up. That claim was false. The attorney tried quietly. Your Honor, any language was based on information provided. The judge cut him off. Your client, he said, pointing slightly toward my father without raising his voice, admitted under oath he initiated the report. My father's lips parted, then pressed together. The judge continued. This court does not tolerate obstruction through false allegations and manufactured delays. Not from parties. Not from counsel. Then he said the words that finally sounded like consequences. I am striking the motion to proceed without Miss Holloway, he said. I am denying the request for temporary appointment of personal representative. He paused, then added, and I am issuing an order to show cause regarding sanctions for the false statements submitted to this court. My mother made that wounded sound again, louder this time. The judge didn't soften. Additionally, he said, the conduct described may implicate false reporting to law enforcement. I am referring this matter to the appropriate authorities for review. My father's face went tight. Not angry. Calculating. Because referrals are what rich people fear more than shouting. Referrals are what create records you can't charm away. Then the judge looked directly at Elliot. Mr. Lane, he said, we are now going to proceed to the estate itself. Do you have the decedent's executed will and any related trust documents ready for admission? Elliot stood. Yes, Your Honor, he said. My father's attorney stood too, faster than Elliot. Objection, he said. Capacity remains at issue. The judge didn't even look at him long. We just listened to capacity, he said flatly. Sit down. The attorney sat. Elliot opened the slim binder and pulled out a clean, stapled packet. He held it the way you hold something fragile and lethal at the same time. Your Honor, he said, this is the last executed will, properly witnessed and notarized, along with the schedule of assets and the letter of instruction the decedent asked to be read on the record. The judge glanced at the cover page. Then his eyes lifted to my father again. Mr. Holloway, he said, before I admit this, I want one more answer from you. Who was the man your father did not know that you brought to his home that night? My father's throat moved. He looked at his attorney. The judge waited, unmoving, until my father finally said quietly, a mobile notary. The judge's gaze hardened. Name, he said, and my father hesitated, just long enough to make the entire courtroom understand he wasn't afraid of the truth. He was afraid of the record. My father's hesitation lasted maybe 2 seconds. In a courtroom, that's a lifetime. The judge didn't repeat himself. He just watched my father with the calm patience of someone who's seen wealthy people try to outweigh consequences. Finally, my father said the name Calvin Reese. Elliot's pen stopped moving. Not because the name meant something emotionally, because it meant something procedurally. Elliot stood. Your Honor, he said, voice steady. May I be heard on that? The judge nodded once. Go ahead. Elliot flipped to a tab in his binder. We ran the notary commission number listed on the document opposing counsel attached to their motion last week, he said. It belonged to Calvin Reese. The commission was expired. My father's attorney half stood. Your Honor. The judge didn't look at him. Sit, he said again. Elliot continued. The same individual, Calvin Reese, appears to be the mobile notary brought to the decedent's home on the night he called dispatch. My mother's face tightened like someone had squeezed it. My father's eyes stayed forward, but his neck reddened slightly above his collar. The judge looked down at his notes, then back up. Mr. Holloway, he said, did you attempt to obtain a signature from your father on the night he called emergency services? My father tried to sound calm. Your Honor, we were trying to make sure things were organized, he said. He had assets. He needed protection. The judge's tone turned sharp without turning loud. Did you attempt to obtain a signature, yes or no? My father swallowed. Yes, he admitted. A murmur ran through the gallery, quick, stunned, before the bailiff's presence crushed it back into silence. My mother leaned forward, voice trembling. He was doing what families do, she said quickly. He was trying to help. The judge looked at her once. Ma'am, your husband is under oath, he said. You are not. My mother's mouth snapped shut. Then the judge turned back to Elliot. Proceed, he said. Elliot stepped to the clerk with the will packet and trust documents, and the clerk marked them as exhibits with the quiet efficiency of someone who has no personal interest in your family drama. Elliot returned to the podium and said, Your Honor, the decedent's estate plan consists of a pour-over will and a revocable trust executed in 2009. The year hit the room. My parents' heads lifted at the same time, like their bodies remembered it even if their mouths wanted to deny it. Elliot continued, The Briarwood Lane property is titled outside the probate estate via recorded deed executed the same year. The trust controls the remaining assets. My father's attorney tried again. Your Honor, capacity. The judge cut him off. We have addressed capacity, he said. You may cross on execution formalities if you have a good faith basis. Otherwise, sit. The attorney sat face tight. Elliot opened another folder. Your Honor, he said, the trust's schedule of assets includes... He paused only for a moment, as if he were making sure the room was ready for facts. Then he read, a brokerage account with a balance of approximately $960,000 at the time of death, payable to the trust. 2 certificates of deposit totaling $220,000. And a life insurance benefit of $400,000 with the trust listed as beneficiary. My mother's breath hitched. Alyssa, who had been sitting behind my parents, made a small involuntary sound, like greed had slipped out of her throat before she could stop it. The judge's face didn't change. Elliot continued, the trust terms provide a specific distribution. My father's attorney stood again. Objection, this is beyond the scope. The judge's gaze snapped to him. Counsel, he said, sit down before you make this worse. The attorney sat. Elliot looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, under Article 4, the trust distributes the Briarwood Lane remainder interest, and the trust proceeds to Marin Hale as primary beneficiary. My name echoed in the room again, this time not as a title record, but as a final answer. My mother's face turned hard. That can't be right, she said, voice shaking with rage disguised as disbelief. The judge didn't look at her. He looked at Elliot. Is there any distribution to Mr. and Mrs. Holloway? He asked. Elliot turned a page. A limited bequest, he said. A one-time distribution of $10,000 each, contingent on non-interference and cooperation with administration. A low murmur ran through the room again, then died. My father's head turned slightly toward Elliot like he'd been slapped. 10,000? He repeated, too quiet for the judge to hear but loud enough for me to catch. Alyssa leaned forward behind my mother, whispering frantically, That's nothing. The judge looked over his glasses at my parents' table. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway, he said, "Han, you will not speak out of turn." Then he looked back at Elliot. "And what happens if there is interference?" the judge asked. Elliot's voice stayed calm. "The contingent bequest is revoked," he said, "and the trustee is authorized to recover costs and fees related to obstruction." The judge nodded once, slow. Then he said, "Based on what I have heard and the exhibits admitted, I find the estate plan valid and enforceable." My father's attorney shot up. "Your Honor?" The judge cut him off with a single sentence. "No," he said. "This is over." My father's face tightened into something that wasn't disbelief anymore. It was panic. Because this wasn't a debate about family. This was a court order about money. Then the judge looked at my parents directly. "And given today's conduct," he added, voice colder now, "I am ordering that the contingent bequests to Grant and Linda Holloway are held pending the sanctions hearing. You will not touch estate assets." My mother made a strangled sound. My father stood abruptly, angry now. "This is theft," he snapped. "She manipulated him." The bailiff stepped forward. The judge leaned in. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "sit down. If you continue, you will be held in contempt." My father sat. And in that moment, I realized something that changed the feeling in my chest. They weren't losing the estate because I fought harder. They were losing it because my grandfather had built a plan, documented his reasons, and the record did what family never did. It protected me. But the judge wasn't finished. He looked at the clerk. "Set an order to show cause hearing for sanctions," he said. "Act and forward the false reporting materials to the appropriate agency." Then he looked at Elliot. "Mr. Lane," he said, "who is named trustee?" Elliot didn't hesitate. "My firm," he answered, "and as co-trustee, a corporate fiduciary." My father's eyes snapped up, because now he understood the real punishment. He wasn't just cut out. He was cut off from control. The judge nodded once. "Good," he said. "Then the administration proceeds without family interference." He banged the gavel, not loud, final. Court adjourned. But my mother didn't wait for the hallway. As soon as we stood, she hissed my name like it was a curse. "Maureen," she said, "you think you've won." I turned toward her slowly. And for the first time that day, I let my voice carry just enough for the people nearby to hear. "I didn't win," I said. Grandpa did." My father stepped forward, face tight with anger and humiliation. "You're not leaving this courthouse with that money," he said. Elliot moved slightly between us without touching my father. "Mr. Holloway," he said, "threats after an order to show cause are not wise." My father's eyes flicked to Elliot's badge and then away. Then a deputy approached our group, not fast, not dramatic, just direct. "Mr. Holloway?" he asked. My father turned. The deputy held a paper. "The judge asked me to serve you," he said. My father's smile tried to come back. It failed, because the top line of the paper wasn't about the trust. It was about something else entirely. It read, "Notice of investigation. False reporting." And my father's face changed as he realized today wasn't the end. It was the beginning of consequences he couldn't buy. Adi, the deputy didn't argue with my father. He didn't raise his voice. He just held the paper steady until my father finally took it. "Sign here acknowledging receipt," the deputy said. My father's pen hovered like he thought refusing would erase the ink. Then he signed, jaw tight, and shoved the paper back as if it burned. Elliot leaned toward me and murmured, "Stay close. Don't say anything to them in the hallway." I nodded once. As we stepped out of the courtroom, my mother moved fast. Too fast for grief, too fast for innocence. She cut across the corridor and got in front of me, blocking my path like she still had the right to position my body. "Listen to me," she said, voice low and sharp. "You're going to fix this." I didn't answer. Behind her, answer. Yours, Alyssa hovered with her phone in her hand like she was already composing the family version of events. My father came up beside my mother, smile stripped off now. "You think you're clever," he said quietly, "but you just made yourself a target." Elliot stepped slightly between us, not touching my father, just occupying space with the kind of calm that makes threats look childish. Mr. Holloway, he said, you were just served a notice of investigation for false reporting. You should stop speaking. My father's eyes flicked to Elliot, then to me again. You're not leaving with control, he said. I will appeal. I will contest. I will bury you in filings. Elliot didn't flinch. You can file anything you want, he said. It won't change title, and it won't change the audio we just played. My mother's face tightened. An audio can be manipulated, she snapped. Elliot's gaze stayed level. Not dispatch recordings pulled by subpoena, he said. The corridor suddenly felt smaller, like the building itself was tired of them. We moved toward the clerk's office to schedule the sanctions hearing. I could hear my parents' footsteps behind us, not following like family, following like predators who didn't know what else to do now that the hunt had failed. At the clerk's window, Elliot spoke quietly with the clerk, confirming dates, confirming orders, confirming that the court's referral would be transmitted. That's when I heard my father say my name again, louder this time, for an audience. Marin, he said, letting other people in the hallway turn their heads. You're going to regret humiliating your mother at your grandfather's funeral? I turned slowly and met his eyes. And because you all wanted clarity, because you all wanted the ending to feel real, I'm going to be precise right here. At the airport, my ID still carried my old name from before my divorce. That's why you heard Nina Holloway in the incident slip. In court, my legal name is the one on the deed in the trust, Marin Hale, the name my grandfather recorded and protected. Two names on paper, one person standing in front of them, and that distinction mattered because the record proved I wasn't hiding. My father was. I looked at him and said, calm and flat, you humiliated me, I just brought proof. My mother's mouth opened, and for a second she didn't know which mask to wear, hurt mother or angry controller. Then she chose anger. You're dead to us, she hissed. I didn't answer her either, because Elliot's phone buzzed, and I watched his expression change as he read the screen. What is it? I asked quietly. He held the phone closer so I could see the caller ID. Special Agent R. Pacheco, State Investigations Unit. Elliot answered on speaker, because he knew better than to let this become hearsay. Lane, he said. Go ahead. A man's voice came through, professional and clipped. Mr. Lane, I'm calling in relation to the false reporting referral and associated documentation, he said. I understand your client is present at the courthouse. We are, Elliot replied. I'm on site, the agent said. I'd like to speak with Miss Hale and also make contact with Mr. Grant Holloway. My father heard his own name and stepped closer like he couldn't help himself. You have no right, my father started. The agent's tone didn't change. Sir, you are Grant Holloway? He asked. My father hesitated, the way liars hesitate when the system calls them by their full name. Yes, my father said. Mr. Holloway, Agent Pacheco continued, I need you to understand that making false statements to law enforcement and interfering with a court proceeding are serious matters. We have, in the dispatch audio, the airport call log, and the airline internal note. We also have the motion filed with the probate court containing the handcuffs claim. My mother's face went pale in a way I hadn't seen all day. My father tried to sound offended. This is harassment, he said. My daughter is unstable. I was protecting... Stop, Agent Pacheco said. One word, flat. Do not continue with that narrative. Silence fell hard around us. Even the clerk behind the glass window paused, listening. Agent Pacheco spoke again, slower. Mr. Holloway, I am requesting a voluntary statement right now, he said. If you decline, that is your right. If you speak, you will be recorded. Do you understand? My father's lips pressed together. He glanced at his attorney, but his attorney was still inside the courtroom, and for once my father didn't have someone ready to translate consequences into comfort. Elliot said quietly, Grant, say nothing. My father ignored him because, of course, he did. I want this on record, my father said. She manipulated my father. She manipulated the court. Agent Pacheco cut him off again. Mr. Holloway, he said, this is now the record. You were identified as the reporting party by airport police via call log and audio. And you admitted under oath you attempted to obtain signatures from the decedent on the night he called emergency services. You are not helping yourself. My father's face tightened. You can't prove intent, he snapped. There was a pause on the line. One beat deliberate. Then Agent Pacheco said, We can, actually, Nux. And his voice went colder. Because we pulled the full airport call recording, and you used the phrase probate hearing as the motive for your concern, which is not a public safety concern. It is a civil proceeding concern. My mother's hand went to her chest like she might faint. Alyssa whispered, Dad, like a warning. Agent Pacheco continued, Mr. Holloway, I'm going to ask you one direct question. Did you also call the airline to cancel Ms. Hale's ticket by using her confirmation code and security answer? My father didn't answer immediately. And in that hesitation, I saw the moment he realized the system didn't just have a story. It had a timeline. Elliot's voice stayed calm. Agent Pacheco, he said, we will cooperate and provide documents. My client will give a statement with counsel present. Understood, the agent replied. Ms. Hale, please remain at the courthouse. Mr. Holloway, do not leave. My father stiffened. You can't detain me, he snapped. I'm not detaining you, Agent Pacheco said evenly. I'm instructing you as part of an active investigation. If you leave, I will document that, and it will be addressed appropriately. Then I heard footsteps, real footsteps, not echoes, coming down the corridor. A man in a dark jacket with an ID badge clipped at the waist turned the corner and walked straight toward us, eyes scanning faces the way professionals do when they already know the answer. He stopped in front of my father and said quietly, Mr. Holloway, I'm Agent Pacheco. My father's chin lifted. Finally, no, he said, trying to sound superior. Agent Pacheco didn't react. He simply held out his hand. Sir, he said, I need your phone. Agent Pacheco held his hand out like he'd done it 1,000 times. Sir, I need your phone. My father's first instinct was to act offended, like dignity could block procedure. You don't get to take my property, he said, loud enough for heads to turn. Pacheco didn't match his volume. He didn't argue either. He simply nodded once, odd out like my father had just confirmed the exact personality profile he expected. I'm not taking your property, Pacheco said. I'm requesting voluntary access as part of an active investigation that was referred by a judge based on recordings and filings that already exist. If you refuse, I'll document the refusal and apply for a warrant. That process will not be comfortable for you. My mother stepped in fast, voice syrupy. Agent, there's been a misunderstanding. We're a good family. Pacheco didn't even look at her. Ma'am, I'm speaking to Mr. Holloway. My father's nostrils flared. Then he did the thing arrogant people always do when the room stops believing them. He decided to prove he was right. He pulled his phone from his pocket, unlocked it with his thumb, and shoved it toward Pacheco like it was a challenge. Here, and he said, look, you'll find nothing. Pacheco took it with 2 fingers, calm, and immediately opened the call history. He didn't scroll fast. He didn't rush. He let the screen do the talking. Then he looked up at my father and said quietly, Delta customer service. My father blinked. What? Pacheco angled the phone so my father could see the timestamp. Call placed at 8:41 a.m., Pacheco said. Duration, 12 minutes. That's the same window your daughter's itinerary was canceled per customer request. My father's jaw tightened. I call airlines all the time, he snapped. Pacheco didn't react. He tapped the next entry. Airport police non-emergency line, he said, then another. Dispatch, he added. Twice. I've dropped calls before the connected call. My mother's face went pale in the exact way it did when her lies got pinned to paper. Pacheco kept going, tapping into the text thread labeled Alyssa. He didn't need to read it out loud. The screen lit his face while he scanned, and I watched my sister's expression shift from smug to panicked as she realized her own words were about to become evidence. Pacheco looked up. Your daughter sent you the confirmation code? He asked my father. Alyssa's voice jumped in, high and sharp. No, that's... Pacheco cut her off without raising his voice. Ma'am, don't, he said. If you speak, you may be interviewed. If you lie, you may be charged. Alyssa's mouth snapped shut. Pacheco tapped one more item, then held the phone up slightly like he wanted everyone to understand this wasn't about opinions anymore. Oh, there's also a draft note, he said, eyes on my father. A typed script. You wrote it. My father's face tightened. What script? Pacheco read one line, just one, because he didn't have to read more to end the argument. Mention probate hearing to justify urgency, he said. The hallway went quiet in a different way than before. Not shock, recognition. My father opened his mouth, but nothing intelligent came out. Pacheco handed the phone back like it was suddenly heavy. Mr. Holloway, he said, you're being served with a preservation notice. Do not delete anything. Do not factory reset. Do not lose this phone. If you do, that becomes obstruction. He pulled out a card and handed it to Elliot. I'll coordinate through counsel, he said. I'll also be requesting records directly from the airline and dispatch. My father tried to regain control with volume. This is absurd, he snapped. She manipulated. Pacheco's eyes stayed flat. Sir, he said, you don't get to keep saying that after we've got your calls, your drafts, and your sworn testimony. Then he turned slightly, professional again. Ms. Hale, he said to me, if you're willing, I'll take a statement now. Short, facts, then you go home. I nodded. Yes, I said. My statement took 7 minutes. Dates, times, what happened at security, the airline desk, the motion, the audio, the threats. No adjectives, no therapy. Just a timeline. When I finished, Pacheco nodded once. Thank you, he said. That's exactly what we need. My father watched the whole thing like he was trying to memorize the moment to rewrite later. Oh, but the system doesn't care how good your rewrite is when the original is recorded. 3 weeks later, the judge held the sanctions hearing. My parents showed up with a different posture, less swagger, more caution. Their attorney spoke less. Elliot spoke more. The judge didn't yell. He didn't need to. He issued sanctions for the false filings, ordered my parents to pay attorneys' fees related to the obstruction, and, most satisfying of all, ruled that their contingent bequests were revoked due to interference. 10,000 each, gone. Not because I begged, because my grandfather anticipated them, wrote conditions, and the court enforced what he wrote. As for the estate, the trust assets were administered without them touching a dollar. The corporate fiduciary took over alongside Elliot's firm. And within the month, the accounts were transferred exactly as the document said, roughly $1.5 million in total assets passing through the trust structure, with the house already outside probate and protected by title. My parents filed threats in text. They hinted at appeals. They tried to recruit relatives as flying monkeys. None of it mattered, because they weren't fighting me anymore. They were fighting records, orders, and institutions that don't care who brings potato salad to Christmas. And the thing you all asked about, the documents I carried, were never secret magic. They were simple proof. An emergency call log and audio showing my grandfather was clear, aware, and asking for protection from the very people claiming to protect him. That's what ended it. Not a speech, not a dramatic confession, a timestamp, a voice. A judge who refused to be used. I went back to Briarwood Lane and changed the locks again, even though I didn't have to. I sat at my grandfather's kitchen table once, just once, and let the quiet settle. Then I put the folder in a safe. Not because I planned to relive it, because some families never stop trying. And I'd learned the only language they can't rewrite. The record. That's how it ended. The court didn't buy their story, the record spoke louder than they ever could, and they walked out with nothing but consequences. What did you think of the ending? Was it satisfying, or would you have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.